Masechta Chullin, Daf Chaf Hamad Aleph, starting from the third line from the top. Amar Rabbi Yanai. Amar Rabbi Yanai Yekabla Harevim, the Bnei Rabbi Chia who learned the pshat by Malika that you could even af machza, which means you could even pull this manim all the way to the back of the head and do Malika that way. So they should be mekabel as chuvas, meaning the refutation, because the end of the Mishnah proves differently. The Ketani we learned in the end of the Mishnah extra words. It says nimser kasher v'shchita pasal malika, kasher malika pasal shchita. We find that whatever's kasher v'shchita is pasal malika, whatever's kasher malika is pasal shchita. We already know this from the previous cases of the Mishnah. Why is he adding these words? Obviously, he's come to tell you that if one wants to do malika through pulling the simanim from the front all the way to the back, it's not going to be a good malika. It's not approved from these extra words that that's what it's coming to exclude. He's coming to exclude that you cannot do shchita through a chain through the tooth or the tzipayra. Malika, we're talking about malika. Malika has to be with the right hand. Where's the chain with the right hand? So Taisa says, just like by Yibum, when he has no hands, which is supposed to be with the which is supposed to be done with the right hand. So I would have thought but we said if he has no hands, he could do chalitza with untying the shoe with his mouth. So too here, Shane, if there's no, we learn out by Shane, it should have the same din that you use the mouth. And so he's come to tell you, no, you can't use Shane, nor could you use Tzipayrin. But when it comes to when it comes to shchita, because it has to be by shchita, has to be by something that's not mechubal karka, and that's the kavanah kosher b'malika. Tzipayrim mechubad is kosher b'malika, and so is Shane also, like we just said in places. Shame tzipayrim, but how did Ketanilu? Shame tzipayrim, a tooth and a nail. We learn openly that everything is kol sheichten chutz, and one of the exceptions where shame tzipayrim are not kosher. Rather, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, he comes to exclude that you cannot do melech maybe back and forth like you do by shchita. Says you want to that's only understood according to the Manda that says going back and forth by melika is possible. That it is kosher. What are you going to say then? It cannot be excluding melech maybe. He says it's kosher. So there's a Manda that says it's kosher. After the Gemara, bnei Rabbi Chia savri lo kimandiyam shamelech maybe melika possible. He's coming to tell you, forcefully I have to say that Bnei Rabbi Chia, who learned that the Chiddush is excluding Melech maybe, obviously holds like the Manda Amma that says Melech maybe by Melika is possible. Amar Rav Kahana mitz Melika koyitzitz. He presses with his nail into the flesh that covers the bone, the neck bone, the yedet, and he breaks it. The neck bone, and then he cuts the siman. V'zuhi mitzvah. So that's the mitzvah. So Rabban Lemeimas. So Rabban thought to say that from this that Rav Kahana doubled his lashon, and he said at the end v'zuhi mitzvah. So you have to understand that the only way the mitzvah is to kaitzes that he's kaitzes v'yedet, that he presses and breaks the neck bone and cuts the siman through a drisa, not through cutting. Only that way it's going to be kosher. But if he did it through Melech maybe it's not going to be kosher. Rabbi Yirmiyah said back to Rabbi Avin, if this is kosher Melika, kosher cannot Melech maybe Melika kosher. For sure Melech maybe should be kosher. My zu mitzvasa. What does it mean zu mitzvasa? That af zu mitzvasa. That even if he does it through this. Is also the mitzvah, but for sure the mitzvah is to melech maybe too, because melech maybe you're not strangling it, you're doing it in a clean cut. So for sure that's going to be. But he's come to tell you that even this is going to be the mitzvah. Whatever is kasher b'shchita on the front of the neck. by the Erev is kosher, the same laws apply to when you do Malika in the back of the neck. Ha possible shchita, possible Malika. But it comes out when it's whatever is possible shchita in the front is possible Malika. Which Eifin of Malika is Shmuel coming to exclude and say that it's possible just like by shchita. If you come to tell me that the simin, let's say the windpipe was moved from its place, that's what ikasimanim means. That you come to tell us that it's not just like it's not kosher l'shchita, it's not kosher b'malika. Ain't ikasimanim. He says there's no such a psul of if that the pipe was removed from its place, the simin was removed from its place, that it's going to be pasal l'malika. We know it's kosher l'malika. He's come to tell us, to teach us that by the head, it's possible to do malika. The malika has to be on the back of the neck, not by the head. The head, of course, is pashat. It says umalak. It says mimul. We learned yesterday mimul arpoi means beneath the head. It says mimul arpoi related b'reisha, not the head. What does Reisha mean? Shipur Reish, mamish, right at the end of the skull. But the skull, that's where he's doing the maliki. Going the nakoi mishipur Reisha. He started off with cutting the mamish, the neck and the end of the skull. And then he went into makash l'shchita. Then he went down. Further, he cut on a slant down to the simanim. From the head, he went down to the simanim and he cut the simanim. If he shechted l'chatchila part of the kana in a place where it's not kosher l'shchita, and then v'shochet shnei shlish, then he went in the makma kosher, he cut 2/3. But since the second third was in the makma kosher, so it was only 1/3 that killed it, because that was the second third together with the first third that was not in the makma kosher. It's psula because you needed reiv shchita. Most of the shchita when it kills the animal in the makma kosher, here it wasn't, because here you had the first third by the head, or the first third away from the tabas hagdela, like we learned in the Gemara before. He started off away from the tabas hagdela, and then he went into the tabas hagdela. So since it was only 1/3 of the makma kosher that killed the animal, and it's not roiv, therefore it's going to be puzzle. Al say is by malika. If you start off by the head, and then which is outside the place of the makma kosher malika, and then he went into the simanim, it's going to be puzzle. Avacha, the son of Rabba, said to Havashi, this that the Brais learned, that by Yecheskel said there is no ikr simanim by oiv, meaning that even if the siman was removed from its place and he does malik its kasha, this was only said according to Mandi Amar that says shchita leiv v'natera. So then there's no ikr b'simanim. We have there's a machlekes. Where do we learn out shchita by oiv? The shchita by oiv. Others say it's halach l'meish mesinai. Others learn it out from a hekish. And like from the Zaystays habehema oiv, we compare the oiv to the behema. And others say it's only with the Rabbanan. So according to those that say it's minat Torah, so here we're saying this, that we said there's no ikar simanim. That's only according to the one that says it's not minat Torah. That the shchita la'if is not minat Torah. So with the Chacham were mekel and said that even if the siman is not in its place, shchita will help. But according to the Mandi Amar that says it's halach l'meish mesinai, so then yes, ikar. Then it has the din of ikar by oifers, just like by behemoth, because it's minat Torah. We're not going to be lenient. Just the opposite is reasonable to say. According to the Mandi Amar that says the shchita of oif is minat Torah, it's halach l'meish mesinai. We can say that was the halacha l'meish mesinai. The ein ikar. there's no psula v'ikr by Eifus because that's part of the halacha l'beishmei Sinai. But I feel even according to man the Yoma that learns out from the Hekesh that the Zeus Torahs have behema va'oiv, so you compare oiv to the behema. But there it teaches us only only benegay all the other didn't have shchita, but leinyan ikar, but benegay to ikur. HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught Moshe Rabbeinu al Har Sinai shaloi lahavi k'behema, that it shouldn't be like a behema, and there won't be the din of ikur. Says but according to Man the Yoma ain't shchita like benat Torah, but according to Man the Yoma that it's only with the Rabbanan, that you don't need shchita is only with the Rabbanan, is mistaber that ikar is also by Eifes. Where did the Chacham learn that you need shchita by Eifes? From on which halacha did they rely on the behema? From a behema, because it says it next to behema. So kulumil behema. So for sure the Chacham compared all the din of shchita saif to the din of shchita behema, even the geya to the psul of ikor. Amar Ravina said, Amar li Rabban bar Kisei. How the Tani? This the Rabban bar Yecheskel ain't ikor siman me'ayib. This that Rabban bar Yecheskel learned that there is no ikor simanim by Eif. Lo yamar el b'melika. That was only by the Malika part. Ava b'shchita, but if you shechtin the Eif, yes, ikor, there is the psul of ikor. In fact, Rabbi Yirmiyah Shmuel, but Rabbi Yirmiyah said in the name of Shmuel, Kol ha-kosher b'shchita keneged ba'erev kosher b'melika. Anything that's kosher by shchita, those same dinim apply ba'erev by melika, a ha-pasul, if it's, whatever is pasul shchita, is pasul for melika as well. Now, if you're going to say oif that the simanim were removed, is possible by shchita, it should be possible by melika as well, which contradicts Rabban bar Kisei, who says that by a oif that the simanim were removed from its place, it's possible shchita, but it's kosher melika, but it should be the same thing, just like by shchita that it's possible by melika should also be possible. Says that memory of Rabbi Yirmiyah, who said in the name of Shmuel, Taka argues with the words of Rabban bar Kisei, that Rabban bar Kisei had said that by Malika there's no din of Eikes Simanim, no psul of Eikes Simanim, but by Shchita there is. He argues with the memory of Rabbi Yirmiyah B'Shem Shmuel. Amar Zidei said, Abal Chai shenishba hamafrekes, Abal Chai that the neck bone broke, V'rei habasa, and the meat that's all in the back of the neck also was cut off. Nevela has a din of a nevela right after you break the neck with all the meat, and it's metamat betumas mago mas. It's just like any other nevela, because it's considered mace. Rav Chisda said we can learn this din of zidei from an open Mishnah that we learned in the Mishnah in Zvachim Samach Ches Amar Aleph. It says a kohen that Molak, he did a malika on a karma besakim with a knife, not with a nail. He didn't do malika; he did it with shchita with a knife. And when it comes to eif, we said when does his begadim become tummy? Not when he gets in contact with it, only by when he swallows it. So it's metame the eichel and the begadim that he's wearing when the kezayis that he's chewing of this eif reaches the swallowing. Like all nevelas eif tar. Via Marta, and if you can say about Chai that the back with most of the meat was broken off, treifa havia, it's only a treifa. Mlikasa zuhi shchitasa. L'cheira, the melika is the shchita, and l'cheira, after he broke the bone in the back, the neck bone in the back, and then he reached the simanim and he shachted with his sakin. The hani lo sakin, let this sakin help, because the melika is the shchita. So let this sakin, when it cuts the simanim, help let hanim in nevela to be matar from nevela, like any treifa that the shchita helps it to become tired from tumas nevela. Only you have to say that right when he broke the bone and most of the meat, it's already, if it's considered as a mace, and that's why the shchita won't help, and as a din as a nevela. So why did Zira have to teach us this din? Amri, we can learn it from an open Mishnah, like we just said. So why does Zira have to tell us it has a din in Avela? If the Mishnah itself says b'freidish that it has a din as an Avela, because if it was a treifa, the Malika was the shchita, and it should and the sakin should help if he cuts through the simonim. Obviously, it has a din. And we said it's metame begad ma beis habli. So you see, it has a din on the vela. Amri the chachma beis medrash answered this kasha hasam over there by the oiv that he cut with a sakin. Even if you're going to say that the breaking the neck with all the meat it does not make it an avela, but it's an avela because of a different reason. Mishum de lav shchita hi klal, because a sakin is not a shchita, is not considered as a shchita at all. In the place where you need melika, shchita is zero. And a balchai that was yeshav and shaloi kedin has mamish the din of an avela. That's why it has a din of an avela. So you don't have a raya that breaking the back with most of the meat on it, it makes it an avela. The reason why it's an avela because there was no shchita. Because in a place where you need melika, if he does it with a sakin, it's not considered as a shchita. My time, what's the reason? A melika with sakin, that melika through a knife is not going to be considered as a kosher shchita. Machli means that the cutting of this manim is being hidden, the chalaf is being hidden by the bone. And that's called achlada. When it's being hidden, when you stick in the sakin between the neck bone and the simanim, that's called chalada. It's being hidden. And that's one of the 5 things that pass the shchita, chalada. That's why in the place where you do melika, you cannot do a shchita because once you get into the simanim, the knife is being hidden by the bone. Rav Amam Pnei Shudeidus. Rava says because melika is dafka through drisa. You have to break the neck bone and go in. That's part of the mitzvah, and go cut the simanim. There's no melech mevi like a sakin. You don't do a cutting like that. Rather you have to break it, and it becomes possible if you do it. If you use a knife and you do drisa, that's one of the 5 things. Drisa. If you're using a knife the same way you're doing the melika, then the shchita is being done, and the mitzvah is through drisa. And you're using a knife, so it's one of the 5 psulim that pass the shchita. According to Mandi that says it's because the knife is being hidden between the neck bone and the simanim. Why doesn't he say that the reason is because he's pressing the simanim with a sakin? Because he holds melech hamevi melika kasha. He holds because melech hamevi by melika is kasha. So this that we learn malach b'sakin, that it is kosher b'shchita. That's why we have to say it's because the only psul is the hachlada, because it's being, once he goes through the bone, the knife, and then he has to cut the simanim. The knife is being hidden between the bone and the simanim. According to Mandam, that says that the reason why the sakin is no good because he has to do like belika to breaking and pushing down, that's drisa, that's strangling, and that's one of the psulim. My time alone, why didn't he learn the psulas because of achlada? Amalach, he's going to, Rav will answer you, chalada hechidami. What is chalada? He says, like a weasel that hides in the holes of the houses, the mekasir, that it's completely covered. But over here, in the case where he used a knife to cut through the bone, even though the bone is covering, but it's broken. Hamagal, you could see through the crack of the bone how the knife is going through the simanim. So it's not a real chalada. Rava said, "Ikashili, hakashili." If there was a kasha, this is the kasha. Mesa is a shaykh to be mekayim the mitzvah of melika by a oiv. L'chera, the moment you break the bone, it's already considered dead. So how could you do melika? Amalei Abaye answer, v'tikshilach be'elas oiv the bayish neisimanim. Why are you asking this kasha only on the Heirav Zirei? You could ask the same thing. What says before the Torah that a oilas ha'oiv it says you have to do Malika on the two Simanim. We said the Eif is already considered dead by the first Siman. So why if it's dead, when the Torah says to do Malika by the Eif on the second Siman, why? It's already dead. Amalei Rava said back to Abaya Hasam, Eif. This that he cuts the second Siman is Kedei L'Kaim Mitzvahs Havdalah. It says Vehivdel. In order to fulfill the mitzvah of Vehivdel, to be mafit, to separate the head of the Eilah from its body, in order to that the head should be sacrificed, the head and the goof should be sacrificed on its own. So therefore, you have to cut the both simanim. So if so, they should cut also the skin in order to be mekayim the lashon vehivdel. Says so he says there's a klal, anything that's a chelek from the hech shechita, meaning the cutting of these two simanim that the shechita depends on it, and chachila you have to cut both, is ma'akib in the mitzvah v'adalah shal from the guf. And if he didn't cut both, he hasn't fulfilled it, because it has to. It's ma'akiv in the kima v'adalah. Kol she'ena ma'akiv shechita. But any part which is not a chelik of the hechsha of shechita, meaning the skin of the neck, meaning if you removed it before the shechita, it still would be kosher to shech this simanim itself. That's not a ikov for havdalah. What about miyut simanim? So therefore you could remove the whole skin separately and then separate the head from the body. What about miyut simanim? But the second miyut, or the last miyut of this two simanim by Elis Ha'ev le'abanan or Agir and Rabbi Lezer, meaning Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon, in the following Baraisa that they said you have to cut it because they say Malika and you have to cut the two simanim legamni. The loy me'aktiv v'shchita l'cheda. You don't. It's not me'aktiv v'shchita. You don't have to cover rubi kekulei. And they say you have to cut it completely. And nevertheless, they said the psika is ma'akiv, they're fulfilling the mitzvah of Adalah. So here you have something that's not ma'akiv shchita, because rubi kikulei, you don't have to cut you don't have to cut all this manim through and through, rubi kikulei, but it is ma'akiv Adalah. So you see this cloud that you said, that anything that's ma'akiv shchita is ma'akiv Adalah, but anything that's not ma'akiv shchita is not ma'akiv Adalah. But we see the cutting the simanim rubei is kikulei. But when it comes to Avdallah, you have to have kulei. So the klal of something that's not ma'akiv shchita is not ma'akiv Avdallah. It's not true. It is ma'akiv Avdallah. You have to cut this by Avdallah. You have to cut the simanim through and through, and by shchita you don't. Alaima say, what's the klal? We have to learn the shot differently. Kol sheyesh shchita. Anything that's could be fulfilled in the mitzvah shchita, yesh havdalah. That's part of the havdalah. That is needed for havdalah. But kol davar she'eina shchita, something that's not part of the shchita, like the skin of the neck, that's not. There's no part of it in the shchita. It doesn't have to be geshachten. Any havdalah. That was not a concern, and it's not needed for havdalah. In fact, nevertheless, the kasha that Rabbi asked on Zidei, if it's true that a bachai, that you break its neck and most of its meat is chashke meis, so after he does the malika, meaning he breaks the spine and the neck, why is there a need to cut the simanim? Could you fulfill the mitzvah malika by a eif that's dead? Rava said, and v'chein hu eisa means he was a kohen. And when he did Malik Saif, he would cut the spine and umafrekes and the neck bone. He would break the neck bone without cutting the majority of the flesh. And Kisolok Abzeda, it says over there that when Abzeda went to Eretz Yisrael, he met Rabbi and he was sitting and saying the teaching of Zeiri. but there's one stand and do malika on a dead bird because he already broke its bone, it's dead. He was confused for a moment. Amalei, and he said to him, Ema kachu eisa. He say that this is how one performs the malika. He cuts the spine, the spinal cord, and then the neck bone, but without the greater part of the flesh. And then he cuts the pipes. We also learned in the Braisa, how does one perform malika by a bird, he cuts the spinal cord and neck bone, and he doesn't cut the greater part of the flesh until he reaches to the one of the pipes. He gives the food pipe or the air pipe. When he reaches the one of the pipes, he cuts one pipe or most of it together with most of the flesh on the neck of the bone. But when it comes to the case of a he cuts the two pipes completely or most of the two pipes. Stop away.